And we just know that there's things that you're wrong.
Yeah, it is slow, isn't it?
That's some else pictures is there.
Okay,
But
I think we're
yeah.
Very well. Oh, that could very well.
okay.
Is anyone online?
Let's let it slip. No.
Is it fascinating? Like,
Okay, good morning. I'd like to call to order the May 1st meeting of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation. We do not have forums. We need one more person, so maybe we can just do a quick roundtable and see if someone else comes. I don't have really a lot. Like you would say from Atlantic, our new branch on Payne Road did open on Monday. We haven't had anything having a house or anything. I think that's the beginning of June. So that's exciting though. I'll probably be there fairly often. Anyone wants to come in and visit. Other than that, we're still seeing commercial wise a lot of requests. As I've talked, Helen and I both talked about a lot of business acquisition loan requests. Real estate still a lot of real estate requests. Interest rates have kind of stayed steady. We were expecting a couple more, at least one more, if not a couple more cuts this year. I kind of don't know exactly. That's still the case now with all the uncertainty, but interest rates are sort of staying steady. I don't have a lot other than that.
On a positive note, we were extremely pleased to mobilize onto the Intermed site on Monday. So that project is a go. We have to do a preload. And so the grubbing has started now, clearing the lot, and then we'll do a preload, but we expect to start the building towards the end of June. It's not a long preload that's going to be anticipated. And one of our site guys was saying that he said it looks like a ton of activity because the utilities are going in on down the road right in front of our project site. And we're very excited, and I got the team, we had the ribbon cutting over at Rock Row for the New England Cancer Specialists, and we have a lot of people on that project, and most of the team that's doing the internet job is in the office now, right outside my office, getting ready. So I've really been hearing a lot out of it, and so we have a very good team that's going to move on to that project, and we're the other part of our Rock Road team is going to be going on up to Norway because we're doing the Stevens Memorial Hospital emergency department renovations. Healthcare seems to be able to. Healthcare looks like they're going to be able to handle what's going on. There's just enough demand. Northern Light notwithstanding, they have a unique set of circumstances around their financial situation, but the healthcare market looks pretty good right now compared to other markets. We've got three projects with the University of Maine system, and those have gone back and forth with the USDA funding. It's not. I saw this thing on Facebook, and it was Bugs Bunny and Donald Duck. I don't know if you've seen that animation. Where it shows Bugs Bunny pulls a sign and it says on. Daffy Duck pulls off, and it's on tariffs, on funding and everything. And That's what we feel like on those University of Maine jobs.
Sure.
Is that they've had, they've required Susan Collins making phone calls and now they're on. And, we're expecting to break ground on the first one in June. And, it appears to me, and Tom, you could probably, back this up. There's a ton of, I wouldn't say a ton, but there is a lot of activity in the municipal market, especially on public safety. And I'm told that the money is in hand, and that's why these projects are moving forward. But it's funny that, Sanford, Rockland, Belfast, Bath, now South Berwick, there's a lot of planning out there for projects that are in that $7 to $15 million range in the municipal market of all things.
Yeah.
Well, plenty secure, it's all local money.
Right.
And maybe they've got a little bit of the federal money, but they've got it, I guess, in hand.
They must.
And then you've got the private developer market and there's some real concern there. So, we are trying to get out as much as we can. Everyone's talking. Everyone is talking all the time because it's potentially, could be in for some rough waters here. So.
Do you want to mention candidates night? Candidates night.
And then we get candidates night coming up on May 13th. And this June election has taken on that's the Board of Education candidates, 3 running for 3 seats.
That's correct. Yep.
And,
2 incumbents and then a new person on the BOE.
yeah. And then we'll have the
Town council.
town council seat, Don Cushing's seat, is up for grabs, and we have 3, that's right, 3 people running for that.
Yeah.
So, we're gonna do it from 6 to 8 o'clock at night on Tuesday,
May
May
13th.
13th.
Is
Your
it Thursday?
confirmation they'll all be there?
Yep.
Okay.
How many
Oh,
people running
wait.
for Don C?
3.
I have only heard from 2 of the Board of Education candidates so far.
Yeah, I think Leroy was tracking those
And
guys.
Leroy, with the chamber is kind of doing all the heavy lifting on the
Okay.
front end.
Yeah, and it should be all posted on the town's website and all of that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks to Tody.
Um, and, but other than that, life is good. Oh,
It's a good way to end it. So I see the Marsh Street project is on our agenda, so we'll talk about that, but that's certainly a topic that's generated a lot of conversation internally, and it's gonna start to get public, seriously going forward here. We'll talk about the components that may touch this board, in a bit. Just with the springtime, there's a lot of projects we're letting, we did award, the Black Point Road reconstruction project. This is damage done in the successive January 2024 storms. And the road's essentially been closed, at least one lane has been closed ever since. This will ultimately be a FEMA project, but we have to front the money and then seek reimbursement. So there's a little trepidation there, but nonetheless, I've signed the contract. Shaw Brothers was the loan bidder. They came in significantly under the engineer's estimate. I don't know if that's something you're seeing, but heard that from others that. And I don't want to read too much into that. My hunch is that engineers have been skittish over the last 3 years, just with uncertainty, and are kind of continually pumping up their estimates so they don't look foolish. And so I think that's part of the reason. And then maybe there's some settling in the market. I think Shaw Brothers was uniquely positioned. Some of the materials for this project they have for it, they're able to quarry the stone. Kind of a very unique, big, large stones as you might expect. So I think their pricing was more, I think, because they're uniquely positioned. It was a fairly small project in a very tight window. So for them, they can, put a 6-person crew on and get out of there in 5 weeks.
I think people want work. I think you're
Which is
accurate.
exactly what we want, commit to the project, mobilize, get it done and get out. And then they, of course, have big, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects out there. So I'm very pleased with that. We did also open bids for the Eastern Trail Close the Gap project. This is the actually connect the trail from where it ends at the Nunsuch River all the way to Wainwright Field, Subflow. We have issued notice of award to Shaw Brothers in Chile. We had 7 bidders, which was interesting. Huge, there's probably a $2.5 million spread between the low and the high. But we scoured through the low bid and so they missed anything. Again, I just think they're somewhat uniquely positioned, have a lot of good connections. This project's going to be unique in that the trail work is easy. Frankly, a large landscape contractor could probably do the kind of the trail work itself, but it has some very complicated bridge work. So they don't recall who their site is on the bridge, but I'm still looking at the budget. We issued what's called a notice of award, and that allows them to go secure the performance and payment bonds. It also releases all the other bidders who have bonds that are kind of pending at their bond. But we're still looking at the budget because I think we're still several $100,000 short on that one. We're factoring all of the right-of-way acquisitions and design and so on and so forth. So we'll be going back to the state to see if we'll get some additional funds there. The budget is certainly the thing that dominates our time and attention this time of year. I will say this year is unique in that the council did not state kind of any budget goals. Typically, there's a multi-part budget goal centered around expected tax rate increase. They chose not to. We don't need to because we kind of know what that always is, where that kind of level of comfort is. This year was a bit challenging in that it was really the second year, the full year of our increases from our collective bargaining agreements. So we settled 4 agreements last year, which represents about 60% of our employees. And in doing so, there were some huge wage adjustments just to be competitive. We tried to test this, and it's a bit of an arms race that isn't sustainable. So at some point we've got to settle it because we're competing with the same candidate pool. And I've seen some settling in that market, but all of us are, if they haven't gone through recent negotiations, they'll be up for a big shock. So we've had to absorb that financial impact. We've done that. Beyond that, the council actually, through its finance committee, is bringing on, I think there's 16 new positions this year. 3/4 of which I didn't have in my budget, but I kind of positioned themselves for something they could add in. And the reason I bring it up, I'm really excited, particularly in the public safety side. There'll be 8 new firefighter EMTs or paramedics, and that will afford us the ability to put a 3rd ambulance full-time 24/7 on, which is a big deal. We had a grant to do a pilot project over the winter, and it was wildly successful. And call one is such that it really demands it. So we're really excited that there's actually a tangible benefit from this investment. In the past, it's always been, we need more bodies, and we might reduce overtime, but now we actually have something we can say, this is what you get for your investment. Similarly, on the police side, you might be surprised to hear that for 40 years or better, our minimum shift size has been 2 officers and 1 sergeant. So there are times of the day, still today, where we have 3 officers on shift. And that's a fairly scary proposition with the size of our community and the amount of activity. So we're bringing 4 new officers on, and that will give us the ability to go to 3 to 1. So it's significantly, there's a value multiplier there. And that's because we've made investments in them to the point where we're at that tipping point. And so council saw the value in that, and so we're advancing that. And also, as it relates to the wages, we're now positioned that we're, I'll say, an employer of choice. I think we've always had a good reputation, good culture, particularly in public safety, but now we are at the top of the wage scale. And so all of a sudden, our fortunes have changed. We've been, very successful recruitment processes. So we see the time is right to kind of grab people. So I'm pleased the council saw the value and is advancing those. And knock on wood, tonight is our last finance meeting. It is going remarkably well. I think the mantra of the council correctly is they don't want to make waves internally and externally because they really want to put all of their chips in the school towards the school. We need to find a solution this fall. And to the extent that they can be harmonious as a group and no self-inflicted wounds to invite the ire of the public, and there's a couple of things they can that we try our best to either delay or modify if useful. But that I think is a laudable goal that we're all striving for. I personally have invested a ton of time. This is my third time on the school project. But there's a 22-person citizen committee that has been meeting every Monday night for 3 and 4 hours for 6 months. I mean, it has been a slog. And my part has really been on the site selection piece. And we've narrowed it down. We've got kind of officially 4 sites, but there's really 2 sites in my mind that are kind of lead. And I'm just so anxious to be set loose because I need to. I've had conversations with these landowners, but I haven't had any kind of material negotiations, if you will.
Would those sites work, whether you're building a 4th primary
Yeah.
school or a consolidated?
Yeah, of the 4, there's only one that doesn't work for both options, and that one is Memorial Park, which I think is it's been up for consideration for obvious reasons, but I think it's politically, I think there's a lot to be. Yeah, we own it, but I would argue we're gonna have to find another space to
Right,
replace what we're losing.
right.
I don't know how we do that. So
Would it be helpful in Memorial Park to have the usage data that we have from Placer AI? Because it really has changed.
Intuitively, everyone has a sense of
Okay.
connection
Yeah.
to the park. And it's not just the community park, the concert series, it's the
Prom.
prom, it's the play field,
Yeah.
it's the skate park, it's everything. And I think let people have their own
Pickleball.
pickleball.
There you go.
Tom, would you say that, the committee, has there been participation in the process by, call it the usual suspects of people that typically have opposed it this time around?
Yes, yeah, no, it's an interesting collection. It was kind of self-selected. There was no I don't think there was any criteria. They didn't reject anyone, let me put it that way. Keep in mind, last year we had a 70-person committee that got us kind of the first step, which I thought was just absurd. It's the inmates running the asylum. It's just so unwieldy to deal with complex issues. And we had no professional consulting support, so this group was really flying blind. This group is supported by Harriman. So it's decidedly different, but it's still large. It's a 21 or 22-person committee of totally divergent views. And, it's restored my faith in process that they conduct themselves with respect and civility. To be fair, they haven't really had to make a tough decision yet. They're quickly approaching that. And on that score, there's a second survey that's now up and running. Hopefully you heard something about it.
Yes.
This survey, unlike the first one where we were just kind of all over the place, it is narrowed down to 2 options. Those 2 options are fully described, and there's very specific questions around each. And the way this is really being set up, unless there's nothing really conclusive from the survey, we're gonna have to accept the survey results. I just can't imagine going against what the community has told us they prefer. So that's kind of where we're on that project. And again, I think everyone is rowing in the same direction, which I can't say has always happened on big capital projects. And they come to that point for different reasons. I think some on the town side, I'll put myself, I think we desperately need to find a school solution. Selfishly, it paralyzes every other conversation. We need to clear this out. And as now the problem doesn't go away, it just gets more expensive. So the sooner we tackle it, the better. And I think, of course, the school department staff, have a very particular interest for other schools. But
And I think if you just sign on to the website, a little pop-up comes up and you can take the survey.
That's the latest, sir.
It is.
I got an email.
But yeah. Mhm.
I think already?
Yeah.
What was your, give me your honest feedback, because we struggle about how to construct these and.
Oh, that survey, I mean, the one thing, look, site location would have been helpful,
Yeah.
because I live in the side of town that I maybe just now learned is we'll lose a community school no matter what, and that would have been maybe helpful.
We're gonna replace it with a better, and more convenient location.
Memorial Park isn't really central to my side of town.
Well, in my mind, that's not one of the two.
Okay. Uh,
You can't say with it.
here's what may have been helpful. I mean, I leaned toward, because the town made such a uh, big vocal statement in Killing Glass one about not wanting to lose the local schools. So I lean toward what will pass. That maybe has a better chance of passing. The thing that might have been helpful, aside from pure cost savings of the consolidated school, is are there any educational benefits? Do you get better resources? I don't
Mhm.
think that was in the survey. I might have missed it, but I don't think it was. Like, will there be better special ed or
You will be.
you know, and I feel like that might have been helpful to understand beyond purely staff cost savings.
Fair point.
Good.
And I'm sure you appreciate, there's just only so much you can do by way of kind of wind up and lead up to the questions.
Yeah.
So, no, that's.
Is there something in the paper that, like,
What
me-
paper?
oh, the leaders
Right.
gone?
There are no.
Oh, that's right.
All online.
Forgot.
Hmm.
That's
Right.
right. I haven't seen one. They dump a whole pile.
Right.
What's in that?
I'll end on that point. I mean, with the loss of the leader, the
Yeah.
position anyhow,
Mhm.
that's a huge loss to
Yeah.
us. I'm sure you come to appreciate over the last 5 years or so, we've had 2 or 3, sometimes
Yeah.
2, sometimes 3 articles in every edition, whether it's
Mhm.
from staff or
Mhm.
counselor. So it's been a tremendous resource
Mhm.
for us, and it's, it is the single source, the best source of information our residents have. Because it's sitting in their mailbox for free.
Mhm.
So finding a way to replace them, I think we're looking at, Cape Elizabeth has kind of a local
Mhm.
paper, so to speak. Quorum has something like it, a little different.
Wyndham.
So whether something like that can rise to national museum. But we're having conversations with Scarborough Living, Kate,
Mhm.
to see if there's any collaboration there.
Cause Cape Elizabeth, there's a campaign against it. I mean, you drive into Cape Elizabeth, you see all the signs.
Yeah, their school vote is up again.
Oh,
this
right,
June,
school
so they're
vote, yeah.
hot and heavy. The opposition is now finding an ethics violation against the school district.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just was surprised I
It's
drove through
nasty.
Cape. and I was like,
Cape Fear.
No, and we've been right behind them each time,
Yeah.
So I hope that doesn't bleed over here. So that's enough for now.
Thank you, Tom.
Uncertainty is the name of the game everywhere in government, especially Cumberland County. I think probably the last time I talked about it, we weren't sure if we were going to be paid promised money for our public health programming and lots of other things. And so far, court action seems to have supported most of that money coming in. I mean, at the time, uh, that I was securing a very small grant for a solar array on our new office building. I went to file my latest report and the website had just completely vanished.
Wow.
And instead there was a link to a press release about how the president's gonna fix it. And so, a court action happened, the website was back. Seems like some of these
Yeah.
things that are kind of in process anyway we're gonna be paid for, including that one, which surprises me. But fortunately, our biggest capital projects were ARPA funded and are coming to fruition now. I mean, we're close to opening the doors on the jail medical complex that Andrew French has done such a great job on. And I think in about a month, we'll move into our new executive offices off the peninsula. So all that stuff is great. But then certainly there's just this bigger question about, the things we've been talking about moving forward. What can we do? Fortunately, thanks to Scarborough's Empire Building and Fire and EMS, there's more work for us to do in consolidating, helping regional communities consolidate some of their efforts and work together. So we're hiring a regional fire EMS coordinator at the county who will focus primarily on training. It's something that York County has established and has been really successful in is
I was in the vehicle with him
Okay.
once, 2 weeks ago,
with Roger.
with Rod Hooper.
Yeah, I mean, he's built something really big there, and I think we have the same needs here. So we're starting with regional training for fire EMS. It'll just really help these departments get staffed up faster and keep up with those regulations that are always changing and what their employees need to be trained for. Hopefully expand that into other things soon after.
Could you touch on the CDBG program? So Jean Marie had mentioned last night that the funding for CDBG has not been,
It hasn't been increased in a while.
They've just used all of their annual allocation award.
Okay.
This year, I think.
so I was hearing her say it wasn't gonna,
Well, it hasn't been, I mean, I think the budget that will pay for what the CDBG, what the county program manages hasn't been approved yet. We go through this every year.
Okay.
We're not aligned our schedule with theirs. And more than most times this year, we're concerned about what's gonna happen. I mean, I think that we've built an award program based on what we think is in the budget. That's worked plus or minus, a few percent each way every year, but this year is a little bit more in question.
okay,
We do have a senator who's the chair of appropriations who loves CDBG, so we're hopeful there, and we've been trying to drum up a lot of public acknowledgement of the work that program does in the area. Fingers crossed. One of 1,000 things we're playing weeks ago.
Just, I should mention, it being legislative season in Augusta, it's just frenetic pace at all, but it seems more impactful, busier this year than most I could remember. Maybe it's just that bills, being proposed to have an impact more than they've had in the past. A couple came to mind just yesterday, and I feel embarrassed on learning about them, after they're kind of committee themselves. They really have to like with them. Just two I'll mention. One on development impact fees. The proposal was essentially, and I don't know where it's being driven. It's from the development community. I think it more has to do with kind of reducing the cost of housing. There's a notion if we can remove impact fees, it's going to thereby dollar for dollar reduce cost of housing. I don't subscribe to that, but my point is, they were saying that impact fees had to be spent within 180, even less than that, 120 days of receipt. It's nearly impossible.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's enough collecting money for school expansion, traffic work. You don't have it designed, much less.
Right.
And so I went through committee now, it's within 12 months. Even that is unreasonable. We need a longer one. The other one is affects Scarborough Beach State Park. And essentially, Sophie Warren was put the bill in. It was amended to essentially say if you have a state park tax, you can use it at Scarborough Beach, which I suppose on its face to the consumer that
Makes sense, yeah.
that's a finite resource already. I can't imagine if all of a sudden all those park transporters have access. So this is going to create further headaches for us. So those are just two that I landed on my desk yesterday. I'm sure that.
Well, and the financial impact,
Financial,
for
public
passive-
safety,
yeah,
but
wow,
so those are just two of.
because that's also
Two
Crescent
thousand.
Beach.
I've been up there more often than usual this year too.
So can you attest to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they have moved away from the more reliable schedule that used to be sort of enshrined and following their rules, that you have a certain amount of time to announce a bill and you get it. So that's gone out the window. I think that went with COVID and has just stayed gone. So you have to really be on top of it, and the committees I've noticed the sort of lead of partisanship into committee work more than it used to be. Which is really unfortunate. Certainly starting in appropriations and blossoming out from there. So I think that they're incredibly far behind. They're desperately trying to catch up. They're in special session, which they went into in spring, so it's more expensive to be there. It's just a very,
Okay.
Karen, you probably saw it. I mean, all of a sudden, there's a webinar today at noontime from the Biotechnology Council of Maine about pending legislation. And they planned it, like yesterday, we were notified and.
They had a
we-
long list in there just a couple of weeks ago of the legislation pending that could affect the industry.
Mm.
Oof.
So I think I would just say that our residents are also kind of living in a state of fear right now. I did a financial forum with the finance director for them and just saying, look, we're really strong, we're doing fine, we're not federally funded, except for a small portion of our revenue or of our business is Medicare. And if the government ends up doing anything with that, we'd still be okay. Not ideal, right? But so they're concerned
Concerned about their own portfolios.
that 100%,
Right.
and so they want to make sure that their huge investment that they've made is going to be there for the long run. That being said, I think I had mentioned we've been looking at some growth and we've been meeting with a couple of different real estate developers just to they've actually been approaching us. And what was interesting is one was a downtown Portland option. And talking with a realtor, they were saying that there some developers are leaving the Portland area because of the cost, but one of the development projects was because Portland's affordable housing requirements just wasn't going to make it viable for like a hotel or an apartment complex to be built. So that was kind of interesting to hear that, developers are walking away. They had basically gone through almost the whole process until they heard that. Um, so yeah, so we're continuing to look at growth and development. I think right now, kind of keeping the residents calm and trying to figure out what makes sense because they're worried that anything political that might put us a target and take away our nonprofit status.
Mm.
And because they're seeing other nonprofits being either attacked or, losing funding. So that's the biggest piece right now.
Mm. Skip.
Yeah.
To echo what John said, I think people have accepted the fact or answer where they are and they were anticipating them coming down, so everybody was kind of waiting to do projects or buy businesses and they realized that it's not happening. The bigger thing that I see that's gonna impact small businesses is the SBA is now charging fees again, which they have not done in 5 years. More than 5 years. So I recently had a deal, customer purchasing an existing business and the SBA fees were gonna be almost $10,000.
Oh,
So they can finance them through the SBA, through the loan proceeds, but it just, adds that additional expense onto an already expensive proposition. So I think people are hesitating. That's compared to, 3 months ago, it would have cost $350.
Wow.
Yeah.
Has the cut in staffing affected anything locally?
I have not seen any
Okay.
cut in staffing in the
Okay.
local SBA.
Good.
office.
No, no,
No, I'm still getting bombarded.
yeah,
I mean, things are changing rapidly, so it's a lot of.
we had, yeah, the SBA, I thank you for mentioning that. The SBA, it's not just the fees, it's they are, up until, like Ellen just said, a few months ago. For loans under a certain size, there were no fees for SBA for the 7(a) guarantee loans, and they had really started the last couple years they kind of refer to it as you do you. So they basically said, we want our lenders to do their underwriting and we will kind of just go their underwriting and their loan process. And then boom, it's like someone flipped the switch and now there's fees and now they're starting to change their policy. I mean, it's kind of chaotic there. I mean, we had a loan that we were having some issues with, and the local SBA office is fantastic. But we were sort of dealing with our issue with the main director, and she she just said it's chaos. It's, there was a lot of cuts. These service centers where you go to with questions were already, bombarded, and now they have half the staff. I mean, so
We're fortunate we're an SBA preferred lender, so it's still a pretty easy process with us.
Okay.
It's, but it is still, adding additional fees makes it a little more challenging for those smaller businesses. I should also mention though that, the fees are still waived for, anybody from the military. Any
Okay.
veteran-owned businesses are still exempt.
John, could I mention, I just, last week, it was when you were talking, Travis, that it came back into my mind. Last week, I attended a pre-proposal conference by the General Services Administration for the Coburn Gore Land Port of Entry, the border crossing up north of Sugarloaf. The contracting officer out of Boston, who I have seen on other similar pre-proposal meetings, he said, first off, we want to let you know that Region 1, which we are here in Boston, we in all likelihood are not going to exist. We're going to a national model. The national model will be for the building, the BPS, which is the building division. He said, in all likelihood, I will not be the contracting officer for this because we're going to a national program. And then they went into the details of the project, and they said, and as we look at this, you are to break out the following areas: steel, glass, all part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which we will be using on this project, which I just found as being such a dichotomy to everything else he was talking about. But they are using selected parts of existing funding to make this border crossing happen.
By breaking those out, I mean, you also probably put attention on impact of tariffs on certain things too, I suspect.
Yeah, but it was just interesting the way that it was all right at the beginning of the meeting, just laid out that things are changing.
Yeah, we're being told to pay special attention to anybody in the lobster seafood industry, restaurants, of course, have been struggling for a while. Hospitality. My husband and I were recently in Canada, and they were at a friend's celebration, and there were probably 50 Canadians at this party, and none of them were coming to the States.
Yeah.
And they all have every pair for decades. So, but they also had some really bogus information. They were telling us that, the Border Patrol was taking Canadians' phones when they came on the border. They were checking their Facebook pages on them. Like, we came through the border, nobody did anything.
But they can.
Maybe they can, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine, with the lines of people that they can pull up somebody's Facebook page to check to see what they're thought.
I don't think you have to look any further than the election, who got elected
Right.
Yeah.
in Canada,
Right.
in terms of
Oh, yeah.
sentiment.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
there's definitely not a lot of
Right.
positive
No.
And remind me,
sentiment.
I think our border crossings from Canada are down 27% in
Already?
the last couple of months. Yeah. Okay. So my suggestion is we skip the approvals, but I do want to do a quick audit update, if you don't mind. So, as you know, we had to switch auditors, and I finally have the audit report, which I will be sending out. And I just got the federal 990 report to file today, so I'll be trying to get that done tomorrow or Monday. And everything looks okay. I think they struggled a little bit with our system, since we're sort of half between the town and half in terms of our office here. So the audit's a little bit it's a lot more expensive than our previous auditor. We were getting a real deal with our local auditor. So I'm trying to figure out how much I can move around within our budget. But I have to admit, we may need to borrow from our fund balance a little bit, but I'm trying to figure that out,
For next year, though, you're at the budget.
hopefully. Yeah,
What do you mean, hopefully?
well, that number was given to us by Norm, and he was working with the auditor. This year, it's going to be more than 5,000. I don't have the final bill yet. And partly, I think that was they had not anticipated doing us. They, we came to them hat in hand at the end of this uh, season. So it's probably going to be more like 6 to 7,000, but I don't have the final bill yet. Yeah, that's not great, but it's done. And my worry is I just want to get everything filed so that we're in compliance. So anyway, I will give you some final numbers. I'll probably work with John next week, and then we'll get that information out to the board in terms of what the final costs are and the audit. So
Do we have the funds? I
yes,
think we do.
we do. We do. We may have to borrow $1,000 from fund balance, which we've got a healthy fund balance, which at some point, I think for next year, we need to talk about, do we need to keep as much fund balance as we have? That's a discussion for a different day. But in my discussions with Norm, the reason we may not need to keep that is that the town keeps a fund balance to cover us as well, in their pieces. So we're probably double dipping at this point, but that money is, we don't use it. We haven't used it, I don't think, since I've been director. So we just need to come back and the board needs to approve whatever we're going to use from that fund balance. So that's that.
The approvals, Karen, should we,
We can wait.
next meeting?
Yeah.
Or
Do
We
an
may
email to
yeah, I'll send them out and ask people if anybody has any comments, and then let's get those approved.
okay, well,
I agree.
leave that up to you. If you want.
Okay,
Fine, if not, we can do it.
Okay.
Next meeting.
okay.
Okay. Um. Competitiveness
Yeah.
assessment?
So in your packet, I gave you sort of an outline of the types of things that I envision for the study. It's a bit ambitious, but I think these are all the things that I think we question in the course of the work that we do. So it makes some sense to sit down and look at each of these issues and decide what we can figure out about each of these comments. And what I want to do today is just highlight where I really need the board to step in. Like I can produce the information for the most part, but I really want the board to say, what does this mean? Do we need to do something about it? Or, is it a red flag that we need to monitor? So that's where I'm looking for the board to really weigh in. And I envision doing like each of these segments sort of individually and bringing them to the board as I complete them, so that we're not trying to do something huge at the altogether. So the first piece is very simple, this regional assessment, and that's really looking at competitiveness of the Portland region. And the Economic Development Administration has a tool that looks at 50 plus different indicators from, labor force to housing to all of these other things. It's already there. We can do the assessment for or pull the numbers for the Portland region and compare to any other county or MSA, in the area. So, and I pulled the numbers for Portland. They look great, quite frankly, compared to other places. So that's an easy way to get started. Let's look at that. I'll pick 5 or so different places that we can compare ourselves to. Obviously, Portsmouth and a few other regions make sense for us. So we can get that. That can be ready, within the next couple of weeks. So that's an easy one. And again, I would take input on areas that you think we should compare ourselves to. If anybody's got some specific regions that you want us to look at, or if there's a place outside of the Northeast that you want us to look at. Like I said, it's just a matter of pulling the stats. I should say, and I got to put a cautionary note, I'm going to do this ASAP because I am a little afraid about staffing cuts and things like that between EDA and the Census Bureau and others. They're really pulling statisticians at this point, and some of the things may not be able to be updated. So I want to get that done right away. In terms of local assessment indicators, that's really the piece where we want to say, how do we compare to other folks in the region? I don't think we're going to do all 25, 26 communities in Cumberland, but I think we're going to look at how do we compare to Saco, Biddeford, Portland, South Portland, Gorham, and probably Westbrook and Wyndham. So we're going to keep it sort of localized, and I'm not trying to find problems. I'm just trying to figure out, like, if a developer is coming to us, what are they seeing across the board in these pieces? The development potential is really about how much land do we really still have available in each of the commercial zones. And that's something we talk about. We know there's not that much land available, so let's figure that out. And it won't be perfect, but I think we can start looking at how much vacant land is there, maybe make an assessment about potential redevelopment. Again, that's more just statistical oriented. I'm not trying to make assumptions about anything, just trying to level set us. What is it that we have to work with over the next 10 years or so?
Can I ask, is that at all comparing to what other towns have for available development?
I wasn't planning on doing that because I'm not sure I could figure that out for other towns, but I can ask the other towns if they've done that.
Yeah,
So that's a good
Okay.
idea that I can request the information.
yeah, I mean, I think it's just good to know what are we competing against.
Right. The tax base, is one of the things we've always wanted to look at, the relationship between commercial and residential. So let's go back in history and look at that. I think John Anderson at the last meeting suggested we have a lofty goal of like 30%. I'm working with Nick right now to figure out how much, if we just took today's tax base, how much more commercial development would we have needed to make that 30% now? And I think it may not be possible. But I think we should run the numbers and figure that out. Right now, there was a little bit of work that one of Nick's colleagues had done, and we're back down with the last with the revaluation, like 22, 23%. So just getting us back up to 25% is going to be a heavy lift. But let's look at the numbers and see what that means. And that's one of the areas that I think, the board's going to have to comment on, like, is it even possible to do this? And I think John's point was, hey, shoot for the stars, sort of like what we've done with, the open space and open space plan. But I'm going to leave it to the board to assess 25%, 30%, wherever we want to land on that. That might be more realistic. And perhaps what we say is it's more realistic over the next 5 years, we might be able to push that ratio up. But again, that's really dependent on what we find and looking at what the board thinks is realistic. The commercial.
Just keep in mind, Karen's right, we lost 2.5 or 3% that ratio. And that wasn't because of rampant investment in residential and conversely slow investment in commercial. It was a product of market forces.
Yep.
What residential values outpaid or appreciated much faster than commercial, and so I'm just saying that.
Yep.
That there's, in spite of our best efforts, there's things well beyond our control.
Right, right. And I think with that, the challenge that I would give the board is, what is a different way of looking at progress in commercial development in the tax base other than that ratio?
Mhm.
Is there something else that we should have our finger on to understand what's happening? And it could be as simple as, right now, I think the history has been, we've added about 1.5% to the tax base each year, in terms of the net increase in value. So maybe there's something more along those lines that we look at to see how well we're doing. And again, I think that's really a call for the board to see what's realistic there.
Right, getting to 25% is gonna be hard.
Yeah,
Frankly, holding the ratio where it is probably a lot of the goal.
Yeah.
That's even.
yeah.
It took a long time to get to 20.
It did. It did. And we were there for the briefest of moments.
The innovation district is what put us over.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right, right. Yeah, and I think that's where the reality comes in.
And
We'd have to have,
Multifamily is the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. yeah,
That's considered commercial.
Yeah.
we need like 2 more innovation districts to get up to 25%. And
Wow,
is that something that we want?
yeah, I think about that.
that's huge.
Is
Yeah,
this something that we calculate on an annual basis?
I think so. That's
Okay.
because it's not, once
I-
we figure out what we want to show.
I'm not sure you're gonna continue to see residential values go up at the
Mhm.
pace they did.
Right,
So
I
that could,
think there'd be value in some comparative work with our peer communities, wherever those
absolutely.
7 or 9.
And also,
My hunch is our percentage, our ratio, though, we're like lamenting the fact that 20%.
Yeah.
That number's probably double digits of any of our,
It
most of our communities.
It is. We looked at the piece that I saw looked at Scarborough and 4 or 5 other communities, and we were by far the highest percentage.
So we
Yeah.
decided that fact, so I think it's important to drown the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
with county that have much more diversity in tax base than.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we do have a very diverse tax base compared to other communities, just in terms of by largest taxpayers, by industry, all of those things. We have this wealth of diversity in the businesses that are here.
Andrew won't want to hear this, but I was looking at Cape Elizabeth because we was fussy compared to them.
For what reason? I don't understand.
Their top 10 taxpayers combined are less than ours, than Piper
Mhm.
Shores.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do that.
Yep.
another.
Well, they're not
study
business friendly.
again, is, how much residential, properties have gone up, what percentage
Right.
versus commercial, because I
Mm.
think that will sort of explain the situation, as Tom said,
Yeah.
Mhm.
to the world. Because,
Yeah,
all of us have seen our houses double in value, but
Yeah.
commercial property has
right.
really seen
Nick
double
has all of
Yeah,
that
and-
figured out.
Exactly. And the factor, the reason that happens too, and it's happened even before, this last market
Yeah.
piece, and it's simply because residential properties change hands way more often than commercial. And so that chance to update and know what's happening in the market is
they-
easier for the
I think
residential.
commercial real estate is still recovering from the
Yep.
pandemic, because people are still working, so.
Yep.
So the rates just haven't caught up with, people doing that testing.
And then commercial zoning districts, that's just straightforward. Let's look at, here are commercial districts and what their purpose is. And then the cost to develop is something that I hadn't originally contemplated this in this form, but I think this is a place where we can go out and talk to some of the developers and just get their perspective. And let me track down and verify the things that they're saying. But this is where I could really use some board members to help, if we're going to sit down and meet with, whether individually or in a group, just having like a focus group, let them tell us what they get 3 minutes to say at the council meetings, but let them tell us what's going on. And we can I want to put it in perspective. I don't want it to be a gripe session, but I'm looking for what are the things that are actionable that they might talk about.
Are you looking to actually ascribe costs? It is costing.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct.
I think it's gonna be really hard to do because each site is different. Why
I-
wouldn't you look at what the market dictates? Look at what the cost of a buildable acre is in this town as opposed to another. That is
Mhm.
likely to be a determinant in part.
Oh, I agree. I agree. But this is also the place where I was going to look at ordinances as well and how different properties appear. But that's a really great way to say, hey, if you had a 20-acre parcel in South Portland, that probably doesn't exist. 20-acre, yeah, 20-acre parcel in Scarborough, 20-acre parcel in Gorham.
There's not a direct line. There's other
Yeah.
factors.
Right.
Premium for school district.
Right.
Well, and that's, yeah, I mean,
So-
I think we have to be very careful
Yep.
with this section, because once you start presenting things as purely cost competitiveness, it feels a little tax foundation-y to me. You know, I mean, there's a reason that people want to be here, and
Exactly.
there's a reason they're willing to pay more, and those payments contribute to the community development.
Right.
It's such an attractive place to live, so I don't want to get so focused on what can you get cheaper somewhere else, because there's a reason you're not there, you know?
Totally agree. And that's where I think how we show the comparisons, either in terms of, it's really about complexity and preserving the resources and the things that make Scarborough worthwhile compared to another town that may not have the types of wetlands and other things that we have here. So I'm just looking for how can we describe that complexity of development in a way that makes sense to people. And that's where I think the board's gonna have to be very useful in terms of setting the context for that. So I'm gonna dig in with some information, but we're gonna come back to the board and say, you know what, this doesn't make sense. This is not a good statistic to use, or whatever. And some of it is going to be qualitative. And I do think that's where I think we would be remiss if we didn't talk to some local developers or local, maybe it's the civil engineers. But how do people feel about that? Tom looks very skeptical
I
here.
am. I think
Yeah.
I think it's a black hole for you.
Okay.
It's just, there's so much data, and what you get will be anecdotal at
Right.
best. I don't think it's
Depending on who's at the
actionable.
table.
I don't disagree that you need to find a way to engage the development community.
Mhm.
That's totally goes to
Something
all of
else.
this, but I would suggest that you can spend your time better else
Okay.
in these other factors.
Yeah,
What-
and maybe focus instead on the positives. I mean,
Yeah.
like Scarborough has a lot of infrastructure that other towns
Yes.
do not have. So rather than the cost necessarily, but the benefits, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
I agree.
Absolutely.
I think sitting with whatever, if it's uh, the engineers or whatever, but I wonder about breaking it into a survey that you ask very specific, maybe data questions.
Sure.
And maybe some qualitative information, but then and then having the focus group that can really focus on that conversation
Okay.
versus collecting data
Okay.
at a focus group.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think that the challenge will be to quantify this.
Yeah.
And have kind of actionable. Having said that, I think there could be value in developing kind of a list of the factors that affect
Mhm.
cost.
Mhm.
Public utilities,
Mhm.
and I think there's value in that, and maybe we can compare Scarborough. That kind of list of things, how we stack up to others. based
kinds of
on
fees are
We
associated.
have it or
Yeah,
not, rather
Right.
than describing a cost.
Right.
right.
And that may be, a satisfying question that we can ask the developers too, to let them say, here are the cost factors that are most important to us. That doesn't mean they're most important to the town and how we go about doing
Right.
business, but I am,
But getting that perspective.
yeah,
Yeah.
I am looking to make sure that we represent that. So in my head, I'm thinking, there's all that conversation, back and forth between like some of the folks that were testifying in front for the wetlands setbacks versus developers, and it felt like there was a gap in the conversation. And I want to fill that to the extent possible, fill that gap. So the task is to make each type of group in Scarborough better understand each other. Yeah, I know. But I know the Pollyanna in me can't help. Yes. So I might be up for the Nobel Peace Prize like this. Okay. Yeah, we'll notice that's far down the line here. So we'll get some of the other things out of the uh out of the way. And then the last piece really, again, that's for the board. Which of this information spoke to you and that we should continue to track? I mean, we've talked about some of these things before, but let's say the end of this piece is going to be, here are the 5 things that tell us where we are as a community, where we are in terms of the development of Scarborough, and what our potential is. And yeah, that's really my aim. Like, I will say that in the housing little report that I just did, a housing brief, one of the things that I did was take a look at, hey, if we do develop 260 units on an annual basis, what does that mean in terms of population increases? And the real issue there is understanding we may not have enough land to continue to have 260 units over the next 10 years. And so there is this piece that I think is out there for all of us that we're sort of putting blinders on, because we talk about development, we talk about all of these things, but there's land left. So let's just figure that out. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe between vacant land and land that could be improved, that we have plenty of area to develop. We just have to look at intensity, densities, and types of industries. So that's really what I'm after, so we can speak more clearly and with more knowledge about what our potential is. And that would be my objective.
Great
Mhm.
objective.
Yeah. So I'm going to schedule this out. I know we were talking about trying to, have something completed by October, but I don't think we will. But I think we'll have some things that we can report on. But if I took each one of these things at a different meeting, we're out several meetings. So this is really going to be a longer term piece, and I'd rather do it well than just hit the surface.
What's the cost impact?
For the most part, we're doing it in-house, so
Okay.
we're not doing a consultant. We may find some things that we say, you know what, we really do need somebody else to do this. And if so,
Bring
if
it
we
back.
don't have it in the budget, we'll figure it out.
I wonder, maybe this is really semantics. When you talk about the competitive assessment, I see a couple of those indicators are exactly that, but what I think I hear you saying is more kind of capacity assessment.
I think that's a better term. I've been struggling with this competitiveness assessment and realized when
Some of them are directly on competitive.
Yeah.
But I think that the overall objective really has more to do with level setting, where we are, and what our potential is.
Or is it more of a value assessment? Too, I mean, you're looking at, we do competitive analysis, we do value analysis.
What's
Um,
value mean?
So the difference is that you've got straight costs, so you're looking at, what does this community have for cost structure? The value is sort of what Travis was talking about earlier, is why do people choose Scarborough?
Tangible.
It's intangible, but you actually can quantify it. So there's ways, and this is what I was thinking about cost, is
Okay.
maybe looking at a way to evaluate value, and you compare yourself to other communities from a value standpoint.
How do you get the data? Is it survey or?
I don't know how, I mean, there's a particular organization that does it for our industry. I have to think there's something out there that does it for municipalities. So I just think that because I think you want the data, but you
Right.
also, we talk so much about the value that people get
Yes.
being in Scarborough, and even what's the value to a developer, right? So to me, there's an opportunity to be comparing that value analysis as well as the competitive analysis. So just something to think about.
That's a fair question to the developers. Given all the other choices, why are you developing
Yeah.
here?
Yeah,
And
mean,
let
I
them
think that's-
articulate that.
exactly. Yeah,
I think we could all list it.
Right.
right, but to actually quantify it is
Yeah.
actually,
Figure out where the breaking point is,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
What's the point where you say, okay, it doesn't make sense to go
Right.
here, even though I want?
but
How do we
sometimes,
stay underneath it?
and sometimes people don't, by quantifying it, it actually provides information to developers as
Mhm.
to why they may not want to go to Wyndham
Right.
but come to Scarborough because there's an actual that cost to that value.
Yeah.
It's a cost and then there's.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So I think some of this stuff, particularly once I bring you each section, we can add to or evaluate. So you know what, this isn't really pertinent information, and let's just
Mhm.
get rid of. So I think this is the starting point. And I'm particularly excited about this. I think we've been for the last couple of years doing a lot of other things that are important, but this really turns us back to what is the essence of economic development and its relationship to the community. And I feel like this moves us back in line with sort of not a traditional role, but something that really needs to be done. Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I would ask over the next couple of weeks if you have ideas about any of this, or something we've left out. Let's do it, and then let's all let's look at the name. I share Tom's concern about the competitiveness.
Mhm.
When I started writing all of this out, I'm like, wait, a competitiveness assessment. So I'm very glad capacity, value. We'll workshop some names here in terms of what this might be. And then we'll also I'll do a more realistic assessment and say, is there something here that even if we could do it in-house, should we do it in-house? And maybe we do have some, we provide a lot of this information and have somebody else come in and do an assessment for us based on the information that we've collected. And that truly might be worthwhile.
Maybe AI.
Yeah, there you go. My friend AI. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that. And again, I would just absolutely am looking for feedback on any of this. And I believe we have a June meeting. We've been meeting in June for the last several years. So we'll meet in June and I will bring to that the regional assessment.
Why do I have in my calendar May 15th?
We moved this meeting to the May 15th meeting to May 1st. This is not our normal
So
meeting.
there's no meeting on May 15th.
Correct. There's no meeting on May 15th.
Okay.
And I would also say is, it's reasonable to talk about, if we wanted a different date so it doesn't fall the next day after council meeting, or if anybody wanted to look at the scheduling, for next year, now's a good time to think about that. Maybe we discuss in June. The other thing is, we did move the meetings to 8 o'clock because Rick was sensitive about the 7:30 a.m. So if somebody wants to go back to 7:30, No, okay. I figured that was gonna be true. Plus you
I
couldn't,
want to honor Rick's legacy.
yeah, there you go. That,
You said that.
and, and we would not be able to have bagels because Scratch doesn't open early enough for that. So just want to put that out there. Okay, so 8 o'clock, but if somebody wants to rethink the dates and things like that, and I'll check back in with Jim and Jason to see, are they just running out of steam or for the 8 o'clock meetings? So let me figure that out. So I think the next thing on our agenda, and I'll try to go quickly, the council was interested in understanding what SEDCO thought about the, potential transportation. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, go back. I forgot about that.
Right, so we've got 9 minutes. So,
Okay.
I will be quick. Travis can add anything if I miss anything. Travis, Alan and I met. We looked at, we had 5 applications. Full disclosure, 2 of them were from Andrea and Kevin. There were 3 others. We made a few recommendations back to Karen. One, obviously that Kevin and Andrea rejoin as full members. Of the other 3 applications, there was one that stood out to us. And keep in mind, of the other 3, SEDCO was listed as a possibility, but not their first choice. Not saying that in a negative way. They just had listed, all of them listed half a dozen committees, and we're really saying they were just looking to get involved. One of them mentioned sort of economic development and sustainable development a little bit more in her piece than the others. Her name was, I think, Brittany Jackson. She's been a resident for a few years. Her employment wasn't on the application, but Travis actually found her, and she
Yeah,
had
she works, I think she works in administration for a traveling nurse.
Yes, exactly, which had it had the sort of a like the healthcare and so our recommendation was of those other 3 that we sort of take the next step with her. I did call her that very day and left her a message and have not heard back.
Okay.
I then left for a week and was traveling. I really, all I can do at this point is try her maybe one more time
Sure.
and see if she responds. One of the things, however, that we talked about, so there was the thought was Kevin and Andrea, then we offered it to her. I think that would bring us to 9
Yes.
currently.
Yes.
However, Alan and Jim
Yes, term off
will
next year.
be turned off. So again, there will be some, and one of the things that the 3 of us talked about was maybe instead of waiting for applicants to submit to us, where we're sort of trying to choose, that we kind of be more proactive about it, with our board members, identifying people who we think would be good members and might be interested. Give, if we have ideas, start having those conversations now. So we're not going up to someone saying, hey, do you want to join this week or next month? But rather, 6 months from now, there's going to be an opening. Is that something you could think about? One, it just allows us to kind of think of people rather than responding. And 2, it gives a little bit more time for them to think and seem to
Yeah, no, I mean, stated perfectly. I think we're very fortunate that we had 2 very qualified, enthusiastic people who want to be on this board. Because we're surprised, I think, that everybody else had said, yeah, maybe. And they're all kind of new to town, and there's nothing against that. I love that people are moving here and wanting to get engaged, but we need people who have some experience with Scarborough. And I felt a little flat-footed looking for that 3rd position because of that. I mean, there were interesting things about all of them, but we agreed, especially because we're constantly thinking of like chain of leadership, as John terms out, and then I term out, that there are people who want to be here and want to be engaged with this committee. And so we thought it probably makes sense to not feel like that in 8 months when we have 2 new vacancies and just hope that we get good applicants. We should be, we should maybe have a semi-regular conversation about who should we potentially be reaching out to? How does this kind of crop of interested folks look? So we have good people to choose from at a time.
We don't know exactly what that looked like, but we thought maybe, send ideas to Karen and Magda. They can start a list, they can,
Mhm.
and we can just sort of be more proactive about it.
So the 3 candidates, did they come through the town's board?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's sort of practicing a bit more proactive kind of recruiting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is there any particular industry we're looking to tap into?
I think somebody directly involved in healthcare would be great. I mean, we get all of our healthcare information through Andrea at this point.
Not a nurse, not a doctor.
Yeah. Right. And then bioscience too, I think is,
So someone like from IDEX.
could be, or, there's another small company that's out there that might be, interesting too, if they have time. So yeah, I think let's look at those 2 industries, which
I have a
depending on
very
your perspective
I have
would
a
be
very-
one industry.
Good friend who is in the finance department at IDEX. Which fills a couple different
Yeah.
niches
Mhm.
there.
Yeah.
She has been hesitant to commit, but if we're talking a year from now, and
Yeah.
kids will be another year older, and so I can send you her name to maybe she can be the first person on our list, and I can keep looking on her.
I'm wondering about Rick, if he might have any recommendations for like a real
Oh, an
estate
attorney,
lawyer or an
yeah.
attorney. Just,
I'm gonna recruit Gail Brazeau.
oh, Gail, she's in Ohio still,
Yeah,
right?
moved.
Yeah, yeah.
West Virginia, is it
Virginia.
West
Oh, West
Virginia?
Virginia.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Ohio.
yes, she was awesome,
She was great.
just, and funny too.
So in
It was
ter-
someone from
but
the education.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Speaking, and then I know
Yeah,
we don't have much time left after that, but considering today, we're going to have a forum with Henry and Kevin being here,
I know.
can we? What are the next steps for them becoming?
I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
I want to get a memo to the appointments committee right away, for those 2.
Yeah, I will call Brittany again
Okay,
and make another attempt.
okay,
Um,
yeah, and we'll check back in with Jim and Jason to find out, if it's just,
Yeah.
timing and all of that.
done 2 in a row, so.
Yeah. Okay, and then I guess quickly, when is the council thinking of, looking at the transportation, either joining Metro or
Additional funding in the budget. So
Okay.
it'll be hopefully approved tonight by finance.
okay, so you don't really need our input on
Not yet, no.
that.
And Metro said it would be probably a solid 6 months for them to kind of do some further analysis. So service wouldn't be provided until mid-year, to be honest.
Okay, so we can get back. I think the exciting piece of the Metro conversation that the board had, or that the council had, really was about this micro transit proposal where it's sort of an on-demand service. And I think that's the conversation we should have next time about how that works with existing employers. Plus, I imagine it would be very
Very.
good for seniors.
yeah.
I'm laughing because I watched the video and I was at the Rock Row ribbon cutting. And up to me comes this guy and I knew him, but I couldn't remember his name. And how are you?
It's like,
That's Sullivan.
he is a riot.
I said, here, I haven't seen the guy like in 5 years, and I saw him, couldn't remember his name until he walked away from me.
Yeah.
And then I see him on that video on the micro transit.
When I was in the back, so I didn't see it. I wasn't sure if that was Ed up there. And then he came to say, hi, of course it's you. So he's a super nice
He
guy,
really is.
former Portland counselor and very big in GCOG.
Volunteer. One way or the other.
Yeah, Yeah. So then the only thing I'll do is update you on, we are looking at doing, there's a proposal for a credit enhancement agreement for a housing project at, the old Marshview site, the flea market site. And there are two pieces of it. Technically, it's a housing CEA, so it's going to go through a housing alliance. It doesn't necessarily touch us, but I think because one section of it is a workforce housing piece, as it matures through the process, I do want to bring that back to you. I gave you the sort of summary of the proposal as we know it in this, but let's put that on the agenda to come back. They need to get through the town process by the first meeting in September. So I think we've got time to talk about that in June. Along with that, I think the more interesting piece for us is instead of doing a housing TIF, we're looking at doing an economic development TIF in that area that would include, about, I don't know, 100 acres or so of undeveloped land within Dunston. And so I think that economic development TIF designation does fall within your purview in terms of wanting to comment and give any report back to the council on the potential that we see down there.
Is that on the other side of the street?
It's including the Marshview site as well as going down Route 1 and then over and picking up on the Vine and
In that.
yeah, and then Bob Harrisburg's property back there.
Well, there's-
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the two pieces of that I just want to get we'll have back on the June agenda. And I think the only last piece is I do want to say we did pick up a couple of folks that are being laid off by the packaging company down in the manufacturing piece. We have a couple of them coming in for counseling because I want to start, their own business in a couple of different areas. So
There is talk of that.
yeah, so I've got two clients so far that are interested in that. One of which wants to do their property in Westbrook, it's a little bit of a gray area for us, but they're an employee in Scarborough right now, and I'm happy to help them get connected with Westbrook and provide them with some general guidance.
Boy, that's one that you just have no control over, right?
Yeah.
Somebody gets bought
Yeah.
and their plan is.
Yep, yep,
Aaron, I'm happy to meet with you. Joe.
awesome.
They had a good-
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
On that Marshview development, I watched the planning board meeting and I looked at some of the material on it. I was a little it's tough with the traffic. But one of the abutters was kind of not positive about it, which I thought was kind of too bad. I hope that can be worked out because, certainly that is a huge eyesore. The old Marshview where
Oh, yeah.
I had lunch
It's
about
such a
40 years ago there, I think on a Sunday. But I mean, it's nothing like what it was in its proximity with, across the street at Southgate. And I think it's a good project and I hope that they can work everything out. And I
Such a need.
noticed it was on the
Yeah.
Housing Alliance agenda last night and,
That's the thing. I gotta tell you, organize my schedule for.
there you go. There you go. There's just so many
my
pieces.
favorite thing to watch though,
Uh,
it's the town manager's report.
Of course. We're all excited about that.
Review. And I'm not just saying that, I just think it's very informative, and I look at a lot of them,
Yeah.
And ours is amongst the best.
Of course it is.
There's some you just get an agenda and you don't even get any details.
Can't imagine what I could do if I actually put some time and effort.
I know what it-
5:30, I'm scratching out,
Yeah,
But I had that's good that's the way that Dunstan is going, because there's a lot of opportunity
it
there.
really is.
Things have improved and you absorb and everything has been absorbed so far now. I mean, and I gotta tell you, what they do at Dunstan Tap and Table and the way that they really do attract the crowd down there, and there's more coming, I guess, right?
Yep.
And, that whole development, when you think back to the controversy
Yeah.
of that development, the Great American Neighborhood.
Yeah.
And what it is,
Mhm.
it's positive.
It's remarkable, that project and Eastern Village have been, they're 20 years old.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
remarkable, they're
Mhm.
still kind of up and running and moving.
Mhm.
They're totally different projects,
Mhm.
but it's pretty remarkable.
Right.
Yeah, it is.
Having changed
Been
direction,
through a
for
couple
sure.
of recessions.
That might be something else, not that I want to add to it, but that might be something else we do in our assessment is let's take a look at some of these projects and see how
The
they
impact.
started and what they, where they are now.
I think Elliot Chamberlain, Great American Neighborhood needs to be recognized in
Yep.
terms of the staying power.
Mhm.
and-
Yep.
And kind of stick to itiveness and what it is, and I think we're getting close to that because the commercial piece is starting to get out here. Now it's
Exactly. So,
Got delayed because of the pandemic. I was talking to people that were gonna open up places in that spot.
yeah,
And it was, and the big fear at the time was at that point, the schools were busting at the seams and everybody was like, oh my God, it's gonna be all these families just. Exploding the school system. So I think that's the reason that people were against it.
Yep.
And it's really not, it's mostly retirees,
Mhm.
right?
this is everything here.
Sorry.
It's all good.
We can find out, but I walk through there as much as I can.
Mm.
If there's double-digit kids out of there, I'll be shocked.
Oh, yeah.
It's
You'll
single-
see,
single
you'll
digits.
see how it's gonna-
Well, as
Same with
we,
Eastern Village. I thought there was just gonna be this
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
explosion.
So,
No?
I unfortunately have to get going, so you don't have to vote to adjourn,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Thank
Right.
you, everyone. Next meeting is June.
I think 19.
yes,
I know when I was turning them up.
It's June 19. And I'm going to send a reminder today.
That's the federal holiday.
June 19th is a bit, yeah, Juneteenth. Yeah.
That was,
So that's
Is
Wednesday.
that-
I thought.
No, that's.
Oh,
that's
yes, yes.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Is that up? We're off?
That's, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Okay.
gonna be tricky.
Oops.
yeah.
Okay, we'll
Do
figure
you have
out,
a couple minutes?
another
Yeah.
time.
I guess-
I know it's complicated, so it's.
Yes,
I have-
I was thinking Juneteenth was Wednesday, but,
No, it's,
okay,
it's Thursday. So it's
okay.
not going to be the 19th.
Okay.
It's going to be something different.
Right.
Figure out.
We prefer not to come on the holiday.
Okay.
Also, I will say, if anybody is an Antiques Roadshow fan, they are coming and Maine Public is looking for volunteers. If you volunteer, you can bring 2 items for them to assess. And it's going to be at the Botanical Gardens. Yes. So